Hello everyone and welcome to day 2 of Partnerships in Clinical Trials Digital Week. I'm your host and this week's producer Louisa Maitland, and I'll shortly be handing over to our presenter for today's second session, Begonya Nafria. But first there are a few things I need to go through. We have a further 4 webinars to bring you over the next 3 days covering a whole range of topics, and your registration gives you access to all of the sessions. If you missed yesterday's sessions, you can also now listen to them on demand from the Home tab in the menu. You can also find the resources page in the main menu with related white papers and exclusive video interviews. If you have any technical issues, please click the red live support button and someone will be able to help you with any problems. And now to the first of today's sessions with Begonya Nafria, who is Patient Advocacy Manager at the Institute of Research at Sant Joan in Barcelona. She has experience in coordinating and managing projects in clinical research on rare diseases and young patients' involvement in research and clinical trials. She is the coordinator of the Young Persons Advisory Groups, Kids Barcelona and Rare Commons platform, as well as the European YPAG network. Today she is speaking on the use of social networks to develop clinical research projects. The PowerPoint presentation will last roughly 30 minutes and will be followed by a Q&A. If you have any questions, please do type them into the box provided below at any point, and we'll try and get through as many as possible at the end of the presentation. So with that, I will pass over to Begonya.
Good afternoon. My name is Begonya Nafria, and I'm working as a Patient Advocacy Manager in Research in Sant Joan de Déu Children's Hospital. This is the largest pediatric hospital in Spain, and this presentation is focused in one project of our hospital that the name is Rare Commons, that it's a platform that allows to us to make several research projects about pediatric rare diseases. The most important point of these platforms is that families and clinicians work together in a collective way using the principles of the collective intelligence. I'm going to explain today the background of our project and the main features with the aim that this project can arrive to the maximum people that can be interested and be involved in future research projects that we are going to start. This is the background of the, This is the background of our project. We perform a pilot project to study a specific ultra-rare disease that the name is slow syndrome several years ago, and we achieve different important points that are always in all the research projects when we are working with rare diseases. One of the points is that we have a huge geographical dispersion of patients, not only around one country, around the world. In the most ultra-rare diseases, we have patients, perhaps one in one country or two. And this is an important limitation to start a research project because as much patients we can involve, more consistent are going to be the outcomes of the project. The other way is that patients are using, and in this case families, internet to achieve information about the disease. They are digital natives. They are using the network to know more information about the disease. And we need to take into account this reality. Internet is a tool that also we can use in the other side, in the hospital side, with clinicians, to connect with these patients that are using the network to search information about the disease. On the other hand, we need to take into account that the parents of children with rare diseases are usually important advocates in the formal and in the informal field of the disease. Their involvement can help to us to spread the word of our project, to connect with other families, and usually, and I can say that this is an important feature of this project, to collect important information that sometimes clinicians didn't know about a disease. And on the other hand, it's very important to take into account that thanks to the social media, Facebook and the other networks, we can achieve important samples of patients. And this is, as I said previously, an important tool to develop research projects. The most important goals when we develop a research project, a clinical research project about rare diseases, are 3. Basically, the first one is the sample. We need to work at the international level. It's impossible if we work only with the patients that we can have with a specific disease in one hospital or in one country to collect important information about the disease. The second point is to involve and work together with the families. They are experts on the disease and they have very valuable knowledge. And we need to consider it and not lost in this project, the collection of this information. And on the other hand, for us, it's very important to work together with the clinicians of these patients. We develop networks with the families and the parents of the kids of the disease that we are studying, but on the other hand, we develop networks with the clinicians because together we can create a huge patient registry with several and important and significant clinical data of the disease. What are the challenges when we develop collective research projects about rare diseases on the network? Basically, these 4 points. The first one is that, at least in Spain, and I know that in other several countries around Europe, the patient registries are not mandatory. This is an important concern because if we are interested to know how many patients we have in one country with a specific disease, we don't have a source to ask for this information. The second point is the privacy of the clinical data. You know that when you publish private or clinical data on the networks, sometimes this information is in an open environment and all the people can access to read and consult this information. For this reason, we thought that the best way is to develop a private environment inside of a network, of a social media channel, that only can allow the access to the families, to the users, to the patients that can have the user and the password to access to the platform. The other point is, as I comment, that we need to work at the international level, and for this reason, we need to have in this kind of platform the opportunity to use different languages. Not all the people speak English. And for this reason, we design a platform that includes at least English, of course, Spanish, and in some other research projects, Italian, French, or Portuguese. This is an important factor to erase the language boundaries that can have the people around Europe and to spread the opportunities to involve as much families as we can. Our preliminary experience, the pilot project that we developed about the study of Lowe syndrome, provide to us to achieve these important outcomes. In your left side, you can see several information about the situation before our research project, and in the right side of the screen, you can see the outcomes that we reached after the research project. For us, are very significant, these outcomes, because we think that are changing the situation of the disease and the knowledge. And this is very important for the families, for their quality of life, and of course to encourage and promote the other research projects regarding this disease. Regarding the national database, when we start the project, we only have the information in the Spanish national database of 2 patients. When we finish this project, we achieve the information of 24 patients around Spain, and additionally, we achieve the involvement of 41 families from France, Italy, and South American countries. This means that we work with a sample of 65 patients instead of the original 2 patients that were registered in the national database in Spain. On the other hand, we consider that families use social networks to connect and share information, and with this pilot project, we offer the opportunity to interact, to share, and to learn together in a specific environment that allow the protection of the privacy of the families. On the other hand, doctors and clinicians usually are not sharing information together, and we finally achieve a little network of all the doctors and clinicians of the different patients involved in the project. In Spain, we didn't have a biobank or any other basic research project regarding this disease, and thanks to the pilot project of Lowe syndrome, we achieved the first fibroblast biobank and 2 scholarships that allow clinicians to start from the basic research to know other aspects of the disease that at this moment were for us unknown. And the last point was that there wasn't any clinical research project that studied the correlation between the phenotype and the genotype. And also another important feature of this disease that is the behavioral phenotype. These boys, because this disease only affects boys, has an important problems of behavior, and with the collaboration of the Birmingham University, we can offer information to study this specific and important field for the families in their daily life. This is our solution. When we finish the pilot project about Low syndrome, we designed a specific and new platform. The name is Rare Commons. You can access on the internet with the www.rarecommons.org. This is the public interface where we publish news, several information open to all the users of the platform. And if you can see in your screen, we have a specific area to access to the private environment. These private environments are communities for patients and families, because in several diseases we have adult patients that only share information for one specific disease, and the same for the clinicians. This project, this platform, is aligned with the European data protection laws, and every year we review these new laws that can be involved in the data management of clinical information in order to be sure that we are aligned with these rules. What are the benefits and commitments for the families? First of all, when you are involved in a cooperative project, the first point that the families put in value is the opportunity to share with equals, and of course, to share and achieve other clinicians, other doctors that are involved in the treatment and in the care of children with the same condition of your kid. Families are the main source about the data donation that allows to us to describe and know not only the cause of the disease, also this evolution. On the other hand, families can ask new questions, new topics to be included in the research project, and they help to us to identify real needs. Sometimes there is an important gap between the hospital's knowledge about the disease and the family reality daily life. With this kind of collaborative and participative platform, we can collect these new real needs of the families and include in the project. And on the other hand, as I said previously, we can create little networks of clinicians that they have interest to increase the knowledge of the disease that we are studying. This is very important for the families, because sometimes the main concern that they have, at least in the moment when the kid has a real diagnosis, is to know what is going to happen in the future. If you can share and discuss and be in contact with other families, it's an important way to achieve this kind of information. Finally, we are developing in this little network of patients and families support groups, and this is an important help to improve the quality of life of the families. What are inside of these specific communities of patients and families of a specific rare disease? When the families access to Rare Commons with their user and their password, they access to this kind of screen where they can interact, where they can donate data, and where they can learn about the disease. We offer, first of all, information and education. It means that we develop several medical chapters. These contents are written by our clinicians in Sant Joan de Déu Children's Hospital, and they are focused in the different fields or medical systems related to the disease. In the sample that you can see in your screen, you can see the information about the CDG syndrome that includes 13 chapters from the genetics to the other affectations of the disease. Once the family have read this content, they have the opportunity to donate the clinical data of the patient. This is a change process where families are going to repeat the same interaction for every chapter. First of all, read the content. Secondly, ask the clinical data survey. And the last point always is to provide a feedback about the information that we collect previously with the involvement of other families. This is very important, valued for the families because they need to learn about if the condition and the evolution of the disease of their kid is the same to the others or it's different. This is a sample of a scientific chapter, in this case about CDC syndrome. And the most important thing of these chapters is that we offer a glossary for additional information about the words that we are using, because sometimes it's not easy to change in plain language medical concepts. On the other hand, also we offer multimedia content. It means that we can include in this chapter pictures, videos, animations, or other information that can help to the families to understand the content. This is an example of a questionnaire, of a survey that we offer to the families, in this case, to achieve the data donation about neurological development. We are going to do and repeat this process, as I said, to the other affectations of the disease, from genetics, neurology, cardiology, and so on. This is another example of a new research project that we opened before the summer about osteogenesis imperfecta. In this case, the community includes 10 different chapters and the 10 related surveys. This is an example of the feedback that we provide when a family has filled a survey. Usually are statistical information to inform if, in this case, for example, the manifestation of the stroke-like is common or not common in the community of patients that have answered previously the survey. In this case, they can know that 30% of the patients have been involved in experience of stroke-like previously. All these graphics you have in the bottom the comment and the analysis of our clinicians that they study this collection of previously answers. This is an example of other service that we offer to the families, that is the opportunity to make to us medical questions. Sometimes when you read the chapter, you can have one doubt, or sometimes when you are filling in a questionnaire, a survey, you perhaps think that there is missing an important question. This is like a forum where parents can put here questions, and the clinicians team of our hospital are going to answer. These answers are public, but only in the community of the disease. This is important because the same question perhaps is going to be shared with other families, and with one answer we are answering to the other people that are involved in the community. This is a picture about the structure of services that we offer in the doctors' community. The same kind of communities that we offer for a specific disease for parents and patients, we say the same with the doctors' community. And the services that we offer to them are, first of all, an online library specialized in the specific rare disease that we are working. They have a search engine to try to achieve the right publication. On the other hand, they have a word forum to discuss clinical cases. They can put a question, and this question can be answered for the other clinicians that are working in the same community. Also, we offer to this doctors community the same medical information, the same medical chapters that we offer to the families in the other community. We think that this information is very important because you can have in this community, for example, a nephrologist, but this is expert perhaps don't know that these children have an important affectation in the field of neurology and what means, and the treatments that perhaps usually the neurologists are prescribing to these patients. For this reason, it's very important to offer the same information that we offer to the families to the team of doctors and clinicians involved in the community. And the last point, the last service that we offer in the clinicians community is the patient questionnaires. The same process that we are doing with the families is going to be performed in the doctors community. The goal to us, to the experts of the disease, is to try to cross the answers from the families to the clinicians to achieve the right answer and very exhaustive clinical data that are going to be analyzed at the end of every project by our biostatistics team, and to standardize all the outcomes achieved through the different projects. What are the benefits for the doctors or the clinicians that are involved in Rare Commons? First of all, it's to cooperate to collect the most significant clinical data about a specific disease. We are working basically in ultra-rare disease. It means that perhaps there are publications with a little number of patients. Through the Rare Commons, we are working with big samples of patients, and this is very important and very relevant for the clinicians and the people that are going to contribute to analyze the information and to work in future publications. On the other hand, clinicians, the same as the families, can suggest to us new questions to be included in the research project, not only in the clinicians community, also in the families community. And also, they are going to access to the largest sample of patients and their information that we are collecting. The main commitments for the clinicians involved in these communities are, first of all, to try to donate clinical data of their patients. Only are going to cooperate and be involved in the community the doctors that previously have been invited by the family. We don't have access directly to the clinicians to invite to Rare Commons. Always the access is through the families. When the families allow and invite their clinicians, they can access to all the services of the community. And the last point that it's very important for the clinicians to thanks to the cooperation in Rare Commons, is the option to contribute and develop scientific papers with the outcomes that we achieve with the data donation from the two communities, the families and the clinicians. There are, inside of Rare Commons, other benefits that basically are for the hospitals, for the basic research community, and also for the pharma industry. We summarize that these benefits basically are three. The first one is that we are building virtual reference centers in Rare Commons that are accessible for new families and new clinicians. Secondly, in many new projects, we have the opportunity to organize family meetings, to collect biological samples of the patients, and this is an important opportunity to perform new projects because finally we need to have involved not only the families with the clinical donation. Sometimes in this project it's very, very important to have donation of samples for the patients, and at the same moment we can work in new hypotheses, in new work in new research projects. And the last point is fostering clinical trials, clinical phase. The main concept for the family is try to achieve the best treatment for the children. We also say that our work in Rare Commons, it's not try to cure this disease because most of them are genetic disorders and this is very complex to achieve the cure, but also to improve the quality of life. And for this reason are very, very important innovative treatments that at this moment can be studied. If we have a huge sample of patients very, very well identified, it's easy for the centers that are involved in clinical trials to apply and to know if the criteria inclusion and exclusion are agreed with the patients that are in this database, and we can invite to participate in the trials. What are looking for, finally? What are the opportunities behind every research project in Rare Commons? Basically, first of all, to study the natural history of the disease, because in this disease there is a little information about not only the cause, also the development of the disease. And for this reason, it's very important to achieve information about the genotype and phenotype and cross this information to describe the evolution of the disease. On the other hand, this huge amount of information can help to the clinicians to take decisions based in the evidence. This is very important. And while we are doing this, also we can improve the assistance and the treatment of the patients. This is a summary of the process that we follow to involve the parents in the Rare Commons communities. As you can see in the screen, it requires the informed consent to access to the platform. We have the approval, we have the agreement of the ethics committee of our hospital, and for this reason, because behind every community of Rare Commons, there is not only a social environment of interaction, it's a research project. For this reason, we need to achieve the informed consent of the families. Once the families access to the platform, they can access to the content that I explained previously, the scientific chapters, the medical survey, and the outcomes that we are achieving. This is an ongoing process, and this information it's updated continuously. And this process allows to us to collect retrospective clinical data. On the other hand, there are open areas of the community. One is the medical questions, where families can write questions in the open environment of the specific community that are going to be asked by the clinicians involved in the project. And on the other hand, they have the opportunity to interact with other families in a private social network that we set and identify with the name Social Commons. There are other parts of the platform that is focused in the collection of longitudinal clinical data, because the evolution of the disease is ongoing. The children are growing. We have medical events during this process, and for this reason, we have an open area of the platform where we collect information about the growth, information about the treatments and side effects that can happen during the time that the families and patients are involved in the platform, information about analytics and other medical reports, about factors, and one important field for the families that is the quality of life. This is an example of the different items that we can collect only from one disease. This is the amount of items that we collect with the project of Lowe syndrome. As you can see, it's very, very important, the information that we collect about the endocrinology, because the children have a problem in the growth. We also collect an important number of data about the stereotypes, because they have an important problem about behavior, about quality of life, nephrology, ophthalmology. This is the value of the research project, to collect the most specific and wide sample of items to describe very exhaustive every disease. And this is more or less the main information about our research project that we perform in Rare Commons. We have at this moment 9 communities. The huge community is about retinal dystrophy of retinas, that includes 5 diseases. We have also, as I explained, the project of Lowe syndrome, about CDG, about osteogenesis imperfecta, and in a close future, we are open to new research projects in the upcoming months. One is about Kabuki syndrome, and the other is about juvenile dermatomyositis. This is our email. If you need additional information, you can contact directly with the team that are behind the platform, and we are going to be happy to answer your questions. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you very much for a fascinating presentation, Begonya. We will now move on to answer your questions. What is the difference between Rare Commons platform and other online communities of patients?
Yes, this is a good question. I think that basically it's, first of all, the type of organization that is behind of the platform, because in other social media, you can have communities of parents, you can have patient organization, but in this case, I think that the value of the platform is that behind there is a huge team of clinicians with interest to know better the disease and to increase the knowledge. The value of the platform is that it's not only a place to share and to contact between people, it's a place to develop a clinical research project. It means that we can collect information that can be analyzed, and perhaps in most cases we can start to work to describe the natural story of the disease. This is an important point because it's the information that usually clinicians use to inform the families about the evolution of the disease. And also it's very, very important because in the case of rare diseases, when we study treatments, we don't have sometimes the option to have a control group. And this information is used to compare if the treatment that we are studying is effective or not.
Okay. How do you ensure that the patients or other users that participate in the platform accomplish the inclusion criteria?
Yeah, as I will comment in the presentation, the process of the consent document it's mandatory to access to the platform. First of all, the families or the relatives that are interested to participate, they fill in an online form with several information. They need to put the name of the disease, they need to put if the disease is genetic, if they have or not the test, what kind of mutation, and finally, they have the option to download the consent document that they have to fill in, read before this process to know the rights and commitments and the standard information that this kind of document includes. And finally, when they sign this document, a copy, it's received in our hospital. They can send a scan or they can send by postal mail. When we receive this information, we check that the details that they provide about the disease are right, and we allow the access to the platform. It's not automatic. There is a human filter that ensures that the people that are inside of the platform working, because we say that parents are like researchers, are in the real world patients and people connected with a patient.
Okay. If I'm involved as a patient in Rare Commons, is it mandatory to have the involvement of my doctor?
No. This is an option that we offer to the families because we can achieve the clinicians directly. The only option is that the family allows to invite them. And this is a tool that it's prepared inside of the platform. They can put the name of the clinician, the specialty, and automatically the clinician is going to receive an invitation, and he or she can accept or not the invitation. But always the process is through the family or through the patient. We can achieve directly. This ensures that the family can decide to involve or not the clinicians, because this is a personal decision.
Okay. How do you see social networks will be used in clinical research in 5 years' time?
Yes, this is an important question because at least in the field of rare diseases, families, patients, and the people with any kind of interest use these tools. And in our case, these tools are very, very, very important to contact with the people that are using the social media regarding a specific disease. And usually this is the way that we use to contact, offer that we have ongoing a project in our platform, and start to work in a private environment to increase the clinical research. I think that it's a future, because finally, if we only work with the sample of patients that we can have in our hospital or at national level, this is a not significant number of patients. And finally, the social media break the boundaries that we can have at geographical level or a language level.
Okay. In your opinion, what are the biggest challenges that need to be overcome to integrate technology in clinical research more quickly?
Yeah. Yes. This project allowed to us to know the way that the people are using the different tools that we have at this moment. And for the next year, we have a new challenging project that is going to be funded by the European Commission, that finally it's going to merge all the different technologies and social media that we have at this moment, because as I said, our families working and sharing information on the social media like Facebook, Twitter, or other social medias. On the other hand, to perform this kind of research project, we need private environments. And the idea is to collect in one and simple portal all these kind of information tools. And one important thing is to review the information that we share with the families, because they go to internet, they open Google, they make questions, but the information that or the answers that they can achieve through Google perhaps are not right. And the idea is to collect in one portal the real, good, and trustable information behind all this huge number of diseases that finally are rare diseases.
What is the concerns around using commercial open social networks, in your opinion?
I think that the main concern is that behind this platform there is a company that its main focus is the development of this kind of tools and offer this kind of arena to connect people and offer IT tools, but there is not a clinical or research interest behind. And this is an important thing that we need to consider. If the idea of the families only are to contact and share information in this environment, perhaps Facebook, of course, in a private group, because you never know who can be read your information, will be useful. But if your interest is really to use the potential of this social media and the opportunity that allow to contact with people around the world, perhaps the better solution is not commercial.
Okay. Do you know of social networks being developed in emerging markets, and do you think they will have a big impact?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Do you know of any social networks that are being developed in emerging markets, and do you think they will have a big impact?
Perhaps the trend that I can detect is that I commented previously. It's this kind of merge of tools, because Facebook can offer to you specific services, Instagram can offer others, because in the case, for example, of children that have a behavioral disease, the opportunity to record a video on Instagram and contact with people in a private environment, I'm very intensive repeating this, because for me it's very, very important, can also have benefits to share. I think that perhaps the best way is to choose the positive points of the different technologies and use accordingly with the focus of your proposals to use this kind of tools.
Okay, thank you. I'm afraid we've now covered all the questions, so we'll wrap up this session. Thank you very much to Begonya for a fascinating presentation, and thank you to everyone else for joining. The next session of Digital Week is tomorrow with Paul Passier from Astellas Pharma, who is speaking on how to recruit pediatric clinical trials for phase 1 and study design. The session starts at 2 p.m. UK time, that's 3 p.m. mainland European time, and 9 a.m. US Eastern time. Thank you again to Begonya, and we hope to see you all again tomorrow. Goodbye.
You are welcome. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.